All right. Hello and welcome back to our talk show Tantrums and Tangents with me and Saberwolf over here. Um, I have this weird ingrown toenail thing, so I can't really have a beer. So, Invisible Clink.
Clink.
Yes.
I am also feeling under the weather, so I will likewise not be engaging in alcoholic beverages today.
Yeah.
But
You don't want to
I,
mix prescription antibiotics and alcohol together.
I just have a cough drop in and it'll taste bad. Um, but I do have some fizzy water that I might partake of later.
Hey, Creeper, how's it going? All right. So, I think a nice place to start off is vampires for
All right,
today, because ooh, nice.
that is excellent, Creeper.
That's awesome. But yeah, so basically, we're gonna talk today about sort of how there are certain creatures, according to myth and legend and different game lore, and how that sort of changes over time. Like, not all vampires are the same, and vampires that were referenced like back in the 1800s are much different from how we view vampires today, and stuff like that. Because things change, people view fear differently, and I feel like that is one of the main drives for these changes, is the fact that you know getting like terrible diseases isn't as like a problem now as it was back then. So like weird creatures that would like cause plagues aren't really like something we fear nowadays, because like, what are you gonna go visit the doctor? It's not that scary anymore, is it? Yeah.
That's legit.
Yeah, so that's what we'll do today.
Cool.
It's also regional. It's not. It could be locational too. That views different creatures differently.
Right. That is also true. Um,
Yeah, and so yeah, zombies are another one we'll talk about too, because yeah, different ways of killing them, different ways of, and it's very interesting.
yeah, like zombies, I think more than anything else have like probably changed the most out of like public conception of like what they are.
Do you want to start with zombies?
I mean, I think we should start with something a little bit more tame, like vampires. Like
Okay.
there's less ground to cover with vampires.
Okay, sure. But yeah, I mean,
So so yeah, go ahead,
okay.
Vane.
When I was in high school, I did some research on a book called The Heart of Darkness, and they had like some vampiric references in that book. And what's funny is when I did my research for like vampires, I was expecting the Nosferatu, very like like fingers and like very slender and like sort of almost floating down hallways. And what I found was bloated vampires, like bloated, inflated, like tick like vampires that would suck blood from the dead. And I was like, wait, what? This is how vampires were like looked at? And it's actually pretty wild, yeah, based on like where the origin came from. Like it's pretty wild.
Yeah, Creeper, we're not talking about those vampires.
Yeah, those aren't vampires.
Well, let me rephrase. We'll get around to talking about like that, but it'll be much later in the discussion of vampires.
Yeah, yes. We're starting early.
Yeah, yeah. So like yeah, generally speaking, long time ago, uh people were afraid that like these creatures of the night that could like or would like show up and drink all your lifebloods, like all your humors, all your biles, whatever. Like you would just be consumed and then you're like your withered husk would be left behind. Like I mean personally, like in my life I'm not really like scared of that, but I can see how that would be scary if you don't know better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, they used to have some interesting practices back in the day. Like, actually, if they were afraid of someone coming back from the dead, they would behead them and leave their head by their feet to make sure they couldn't come back.
Right, right. Um Yeah, and like ensuring that your bodies are like buried in like consecrated earth means that they can't come back as vampires, like dousing them in holy water or and like putting crosses in their hands to like keep them still. Like even if you turn into a vampire, one, you can't escape your coffin because you're surrounded by like consecrated earth. And two, you've got like this cross in your hands, and like when you subscribe to that love like that thought of vampirism, that vamp's not going anywhere.
Hmm. Yeah, it's very true, and it's you know, it's this. I can only imagine, right? There was the one situation in the past where, in modern day, like, know-how, it's someone who like went into like a mild coma, and then came back, and then they, you know, got out of their grave and went back home, and people got freaked out by it.
Right. And then you throw into the mix like talk about certain diseases like anemia or like people who have iron deficiencies,
Hmm.
um, especially because like way back when the best way to get like large sums of iron into your system really quick is to drink blood. So like you go find yourself some red meat, you wander into town afterwards because you know you're not feeling so great because you just drank a whole cow's blood.
Yeah.
Like people freak out, man. Like you get a whole bunch of scared people together, lynch mob, and there you have your classic horror movie. But like, yeah, there's like origins aside, um, the classic European vampire, i.e., Dracula,
Hmm.
is like one of the most recognized like vampire types out there, and it's like the one that's been subscribed to for the longest. That one in Nosferatu, right?
Yeah, exactly. When you think of a vampire, that's the first thing that comes to your head.
Right.
Unless, of course,
Um,
you're a teenage girl, but that's a different story.
right, that's a different story. um, but like, yeah, there's like the evolution of like vampires from bloated tick to somebody who can like infiltrate your well, thank you, cats. To somebody who can like successfully infiltrate and then like infect your entire like community with vampirism. Quit it. Sorry, guys. um.
So actually, hilariously, I found a picture here. I'll show it.
Oh,
It's
okay.
and let me post the link in chat as well. It's actually like a chart of a few different kinds of vampires.
I can dig it.
Oh, for frick's sake! I got it working beforehand. The first thing that comes to mind is garlic. Yeah.
Right.
Well, shit. I I cannot understand. I get it working before stream, and then when I start streaming, it doesn't work, and I can't show the internet page. But anyway, the first thing it says is strigoi, which
Mm-hmm.
are the Romanian folklore vampires, which were the bloated bloodsuckers. Then there's um, Vlad, like the Impaler,
Yeah.
who is a human, but basically was so cruel to his peasants that they basically considered him a monster. Then
Right.
there's Dracula. Then
Uh,
there's Nosferatu.
yes.
Then they have Angel from the Buffy Vampire Slayer as one of the first vampires with a conscience, which is
Right.
actually kind of interesting because
Yep.
that's when you start getting the vampires that are more human. And then you have Edward Cullen.
Yeah.
We'll
Um.
talk about that later.
This is actually a pretty good demonstration of like the way it's like gone, right?
Yeah.
So you've got like with the Strigoi, like you've got these these monsters that live off of humanity, sort of like on the outsides. But then slowly throughout the ages, the vampires creep into the like being like surrounded by people, which turns into this which turns into what happens uh with like Angel and Twilight and Buffy and all that stuff, right? Like they're not only accepted or not they're not only like in society but like still outsiders, like you know Dracula had to hide who he was and what
Hmm.
he was from everybody. But then you've got this like But like the thing in Buffy and Angel is like, well, we can accept Angel because he's like a person kind of, even though he's not
Yeah.
human. And then you've got Edward Cullen, who, and like that ilk of vampire, which is really not even vampiric at all
No,
anymore.
it's the romantic vampire.
Exactly.
It's taking away monster, like the monsters, like it's like a hint of monster and the rest is like boy toy sort of
Right.
thing. So we don't want that.
Exactly.
See you, creeper, have a good one. But yeah, so it's pretty wild, yeah. This sort of transition to their monsters out there as opposed to their monsters all around us, which I think is pretty interesting.
Right. And and not even that there are monsters all around us, but that there are monsters all around us, and really they're not so bad.
Yeah, yeah. If we go to the most modern, yeah.
Right. And like I think that's what, and I know that we've talked about it on the stream, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because this isn't actually about vampires. That idea kind of diminishes what vampires are.
Yeah,
Like it
exactly.
takes away from what their origins are as like horrible monsters, and
Hmm.
the acceptance and kind of continual deification of them as something like pretty and good.
Yeah, because I mean the whole thing with vampires is that, like, at least in the olden days, like they are literally corpses brought back to life, driven by hunger to consume other people.
Yep.
Like that is that original fear, and like,
That somehow your dead's gonna like come back.
yeah, exactly. And one of the things is, it's not like you want to become a vampire because you're not going to be you. You're going to be like a shell of yourself, literally a shell, harnessing what is basically this monstrous hunger void.
Right. Um, it's similar in a way to what happens in Men in Black when the bug alien like puts on the Edgar suit kind of.
Yeah, yeah.
There's something else that inhabits this the familiar face, right?
Hmm.
And, like I think that's really where like the scary part of vampires, like classical vampires, comes in. That there is this familiarity with what they are, but underneath that veneer of humanity is a terrible monster.
Yeah. That upon first glance, depending on what we're talking about, you can't recognize the difference between a family member and a monster.
Right, right. And yeah, so like yeah, that's pretty much vampires.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um,
Let's talk about ways to destroy them and how that's sort of evolved.
okay, because it used to be like super complicated.
Yeah, I mean, there are typical demon rules, where it's burning and salting and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, there's also crosses, stakes to
Oh,
the heart, garlic, and garlic was more of a warding thing. It's not really a
yeah, yeah. Like there's like to put modern terminology on it. Like garlic was really like it causes a severe allergy, or like vampires have like a severe
Yeah,
allergy.
exactly, yeah.
Ugh, keep it away. I can't be in the same room as like gluten. You guys have to take your gluten somewhere else.
Fucking A. I'm a gluten intolerant vampire. I have to make sure that you're on the right diet before I suck your blood.
Exactly. Um, oh my god, that'd be so funny. um, but yeah, so like there's that.
I've heard of that one, Johnny. The psychic vampires or energy vampires.
Yeah.
The
Um,
fact that it's not real. Well, I don't. At least from my understanding of what psychic or energy vampires are, is they're people. They're not actually monsters, but they freaking crave, like, just taking up your time and all your sort of attention, and just like they're the people that you meet and you feel wiped out afterwards after like a simple conversation.
because they'd make it a not simple conversation.
Exactly.
I have that effect on people sometimes. But I don't think it's because of like the whole energy vampire thing. A lot of the times when people are like having a conversation with me, they don't necessarily feel drained at the time because it's like I try to have stimulating conversation with people. Um, but yeah, like there's a lot of there's a lot of like people out there who like, because like when I think of like energy vampires, they're people who are overly negative, right? They're the
Yeah.
ones who are like just trying to like bring you down so that you can be on the same level as them, like, and they're kind of assholes.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, Johnny. They drain you of positivity, yeah.
Thanks, Johnny. um
But yeah, I think in your case, it's more of a like intellectually stimulating like conversation. You're like, fuck it, hey, I don't want to think about anything anymore.
you get done with the conversation with Saber and you're just like, oh man, that again for a while.
Yeah,
But
but
yeah, like,
I mean,
but
pepper
yeah,
spray's good against them.
that is true. Pepper spray works. There's an aversion to pepper spray.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I mean,
Similar to
imagine,
the garlic thing.
yeah, yeah. But imagine, right? I can only imagine how the garlic thing started, right? People are
Right.
worried, like there's panic in town. You know, somebody saw someone at night, and they saw them attack someone. It was probably just like a normal attack or something, because back in the
Right.
medieval days, shit happened. And then like the guy's like, oh my gosh, it's a vampire. Oh man, you know what? I got this like extra pungent garlic. And like the guy like brings his cart into town and is like, this will ward the vampires away. Smell it! I dare you to smell it.
Everyone's looking
Even
around.
you back away. Imagine the vampires.
That would be that'd be really interesting if it was just like a marketing ploy that just managed to stick around for so long.
That'd be great.
I yeah, and like there's like if we want to like get into a little bit more for like vampires and like something that's not so mainstream, um there's a book series that I'm a huge fan of, and maybe some of the people in chat have read it. It's called the Dresden Files. And we've played a couple like tabletop games based on the universe, and so I think you know where I'm about to go with this.
Yeah.
But in Jim Butcher, the guy who writes the book series, has posited that there's not just one kind of vampire. There's like three different kinds. There's the kind that's basically just Dracula. They're like living corpses who like consume human flesh and blood in order to sustain their own life energy. Then you've got these other vampires, which are basically bat monsters that are effectively just walking around with this gorgeous flesh mask on. It looks completely unreally beautiful. It's like where you get like supermodels and shit. And like these people like also consume human blood, but they don't eat flesh, right? Like they won't gnaw on your bones or anything. So it's all about the blood. Um and like yeah, they're like susceptible to like sunlight and stuff. Like they start to sizzle and shit, and it's bad. But they have a lesser reaction to like traditional vampire stuff. Like they don't care about garlic.
Mm.
But the other guys, like the walking corpses guys, they do care about garlic. They don't want any of that shit. And then the last like vampires that they have are more in line with what you might call an energy vampire. They're really more like emotional vampires. They siphon off negative or lascivious emotions. It's usually like fear or anger. In some cases, it's like sex. And yeah, they like feed that to this like inner demon. It's not actually like something that's it is like inside them, like metaphysically. And they can do this thing where they transform into like a perfect version of a human, but they don't have like an ugly side. Like their ugliness is completely emotional.
Hmm.
And like that's another sort of like direction that like vampirism has kind of like evolved in fiction,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is really interesting. Like that you take the different, like you take all these ideas about vampires and then you like boil them down and say, yeah, they're all real. They're just different from each other.
Hmm. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Which I think it's an interesting take.
Yeah. My favorite way to kill a vampire, though, Johnny, is I love in the Underworld series. They have like the compound like UV light stuff,
Oh,
and they had it in bullets and stuff. But like basically using ultraviolet light, which is the same stuff emitted by the sun to kill vampires. And that
right.
same sort of thing is actually seen in the Strain as well,
Yep.
where you
Yeah.
basically bring out like these lights, these UV lights, and just shine them, and it's basically like a portable sun.
Yeah. They have a terrible reaction to that typically, like burning and awfulness, and depending on how allergic the vampire is to that, like they might just erupt in flames immediately, or they just like singe a little bit and they have to like run away.
Yeah.
My personal favorite one is to stake them, burn them, and scatter the ashes. Um, that's yeah, I can't figure a better way to kill vampires.
No, true that. True that. I mean, yeah. When it comes down to it, in most cases with like how to kill a monster, completely like destroying their flesh,
Completely destroy the body.
yeah, is the best way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's in the case of like Dungeons and Dragons, to like get onto like a little bit of that, even if you like, so there's a module called the Curse of Strahd, which is based on an old vampire module called Castle Ravenloft. In the newest version, the Strahd, the vampire, spoilers, Strahd's a vampire. Um,
Damn it.
dang it! But no, so even if you stake him and you burn him and you scatter the ashes, unless you do it with like a particular like holy item that is within the confines of the fiction, he comes back within 24 hours.
Wow.
Like he just resurrects a day later.
That's pretty
So like
nuts, actually.
it goes back into like this whole thing where Strahd has been like cursed by a deity to like forever live out like the rest of his life as like the most cursed of creatures. Like it because of divine intervention, he gets to keep living. Like a god said so. It wasn't even like a wizard did it kind of deal.
Hmm.
Like which I think elevates Strahd's being to something more than just like a vampire. It's kind of like he's been sentenced to his own personal hell.
Yeah.
So
And that's a very interesting way to look at it too, the sort of the curse of immortality sort of thing.
right. No, I agree with that completely. When you get into vampires that don't have human emotions, though, like there's just nothing left of their humanity. At some point, you stop caring. But like from like a human perspective, that's horrible.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, yeah. So that was another sort of like, and Strahd's got like a lot of like the old school like vampires do this thing like turn completely into mists or like become
Hmm.
a swarm of vampire bats or like become a wolf, like all these kinds of things. And it feels very gothic horror because that was one of those things that was really common during the time that like Dracula was written.
Yeah. And it's very interesting because that like they're the creatures of the night, and like we always think like bats, but like back in the old time, it could be freaking anything:
Yeah,
cats, wolves,
rats.
mist.
Yeah,
Like imagine walking in the woods, and then all of a sudden you just notice the mist is like coalescing, and then there's a fucking vampire. Like
right.
literally, he was watching you the whole time.
Oh shit.
Oh
Yeah,
shit!
no.
It's like some weird form of limited omnipresence.
A little bit, which I think is where some of like the terror of like generally vampires like comes from, right?
Yeah.
Um,
That they're well more aware of you than you are of them.
right. Especially because, especially like if you subscribe to like the normal modern day kind of thought process where it's like, oh, that stuff's just in the movies because nobody's superstitious like that anymore.
Yeah.
And then like you've got movies like Underworld that play on that kind of shit. They're just like, yeah, well, humans just don't believe in vampires.
Yeah.
So why the fuck wouldn't we just use that to our advantage? We want them to continue to think that vampires are not real because we don't want to go back to the days of lynch mobs.
Yeah, exactly.
The village mob was a terrible thing. We don't want it to come back. It should not
No.
make a resurgence. We are fictional.
But the guy selling torches and pitchforks.
He definitely wants that to come back. Um, but yeah, and then there's like other avenues for like that kind of fiction, like in the Elder Scrolls.
Yeah, that's that's an interesting one too, because that's another genre where being a vampire is kind of devalued almost
Right.
in the monstrous sense, because like essentially if you become a vampire in the Elder Scrolls or any other game, it's not like you lose control of your character because then you wouldn't really be playing a game.
Right.
So essentially it's this balance of, strengths and weaknesses for being a vampire, which is, normally like weakness to fire or limited regeneration or, damage in sunlight. And that's sort of a, there's sacrifices to be made, but there's also benefits.
Right, like heightened agility. I'm certain that there's some game out there. I don't know if it's included in any of the Elder Scrolls games with like limited like polymorph stuff,
Yeah, yeah.
like change form and shit.
Mm-hmm. And like extra spells and whatnot based on like vampire, like, charming or something like that.
Right, right. There was a different role playing game that came out predominantly in the 90s, produced by a company called White Wolf. Um, they did the Vampire the Masquerade, and then they did Vampire the Requiem.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Masquerade is largely considered to be the superior one, even though I personally prefer Requiem. Um, but yeah, like they did that thing where they like broke down vampires and like they said they're all just one thing, but like they have different clans and stuff, right? And
Mm.
like different clans of vampires like had different innate abilities, and like that's another one of those like systematic approaches to vampires that like kind of breaks a little bit of like fictional, um kind of breaks a little bit of like fictional belief, in my opinion, on like what vampires are, because it really feels mechanical. Like it feels gamey.
Well, I mean, one of the things, I guess, like, if we were talking about vampires exist, get over it, there are
Right.
different clans of vampires.
Sure.
You could think of it like how there's like the armadillo and the pangolin, which are very similar creatures,
Right. Right.
like where they both have shells, they both eat ants, like they're very similar, but they're on completely different like continents and have no relation to each other at all.
Right. Right. I mean, and that'd be an interesting thing. Um, but I think what they were trying to get at more with like Vampire the Masquerade and games like that is like more like they're more like dogs. Like it's all the same species, right? But it's you just get different breeds.
Huh, okay. Interesting. Hmm.
I think ultimately that's what they're trying to get at. Um, but yeah, it breaks down into like this weird like social and cultish kind of like mythology. And I won't get into it too deeply because like I don't know all of it like terribly well, and if anybody's watching, they'll just be like, "Oh my god, I can't believe you got so much wrong." Um, but yeah, like that's like another approach to like modifying like vampire lore.
Yeah,
Like
where you basically section it into different sections, like,
yeah,
okay, they're clans, so this is like this type of vampire, this type of vampire, which are from all these different cultures and regions,
right, right,
or time.
yeah. Um, in the in the vampire games from White Wolf, it's mostly about like which vampires bit whom, right?
Yeah, exactly. It sort of acts as like an infection.
Yeah,
And even the thing of turning is very different.
right,
Like sometimes it's as much as like you're bitten, it's like in their saliva.
right, right.
Sometimes it's actually like a thing where you're bitten and you become like a zombie.
Right.
You actually require a blood transfusion to become a vampire.
Right. Yeah. That's yeah, it's something that's changed throughout throughout like the different iterations of vampire lore as well. I don't actually know how it worked for the Strigoi. Um but yeah, I know that Dracula like had to continually bite somebody in order to eventually turn them into a vampire.
Yeah, like you had to like feed for a long time.
Yeah.
And then there's the you have to consume vampire blood to become a vampire too is another one.
Right. That was definitely like really prevalent in that one came to prominence like I think more recently.
Yeah, definitely more recent.
Could be wrong. I like that's where like I remember social or not like social media. What am I talking about? I remember like just taking in media where like that became a thing, and that started I think in like the 90s.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, if we're which were you talking about the original Strigoi or the Strigoi in Strain?
I was talking about like the original Strigoi, like
Okay.
in the strain. I mean, it's a worm parasite, right? Like
Yeah, which is pretty cool. I mean, that's a whole nother like thing of vampires right there.
right. Let's talk about that barrel of vamps, right?
Okay,
So
cool. So Strain is freaking a really freaking awesome show. Um,
yes,
basically the
make
way
vampire monsters again.
huh?
Make vamps monsters again.
Make vamps monsters again, right? Um, so they basically start with a parasite and like they have a master like parasite basically this host and he actually transfers from body to body and consciousness to consciousness by basically gifting his like worm parasites into people and they're just like wiggly like sort of white hair like things like they're not you wouldn't really think of them as something to get but they're extremely like active and they like quickly burrow under your skin and into your veins and gosh once one of them gets in like
It
you're done like their reproduction rate is off the chain.
like so much so that it's like scientifically unrealistic, but
Oh
like
yeah.
at this time super cool. Like it's scary, which is what I want out of vampires.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Like there was a scene where they went through all this trouble to someone got a worm in the face and they went through all this trouble to take the worm out and then basically what they did was they used UV light to see if there were any more and they looked at the guy's back and it was writhing. His whole back was just all kinds of different worms.
yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, but basically what happens there is the transformation, the actual physical look. Let me try to see if actually can you find it? Like a good example of the strain vampire.
Let me see if I can find one real quick.
All right. But basically what happens is they are at that point literal corpses. And they're only kept alive by like they actually like go for like through a period of like they have no heart rate at all. And basically they come back to life and they don't really have consciousness when they come back. And they start like losing certain like limbs and stuff like that because like it just doesn't support like that sort of system. Um,
Right.
yeah, yeah, like and like one of the huge things about the Strigoi and the strain is that their whole body undergoes this like huge like change in a very short period of time where essentially they mutate and get like this modified tentacle um that I don't think it replaces their tongue. Or no, it does. It does sort of replace their tongue and they sort of it's sort of um like it's like an extended tongue and it has like a barb at the end and it sticks into people and that's how you can both feed and transfer worms to people.
Yeah, it's like a giant flatworm is in your mouth and throat.
Yeah.
But yeah, like
You start
the
losing your hair and all sorts of stuff.
yeah, it's a pretty gross transformation, quite honestly.
Oh yeah, yeah. But yeah, I mean that's a whole nother thing of because usually in the past like vampires were sort of seen as a curse or a spell, like it was occurred magically.
Yeah.
And this is one of those like it's a disease sort of situations, which is very interesting.
Right. Yeah, I can't remember. I vaguely recall Vlad Dracul, who would eventually become Dracula. Um, like I'm reasonably certain that like he made a deal with Satan basically
Yeah.
in
Hmm.
order to like become a vampire.
Yeah, I think that's yeah. It had to do with the occult stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, the ones in the strain are pretty nuts. Freaking a,
Yeah, no, they're freakish.
they're freakish. I
Um,
can't wait. I think the next season's coming out soon. Actually,
sounds correct.
let me see this one.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
one's
that's the worm that like comes out of their mouth.
here's how they start.
Yep, you get hit by one of those
Right in the face.
right in the face.
Ugh, so gross.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, like that's what I like. If there's anything that I like the strain for specifically, it's that like their vampires are revolting.
yeah, exactly. And I think that's really cool because yeah, we did go through a period of time in recent history where vampires were basically seen as like a bad boy, like heartthrob.
Right.
And like the only bad part was, oh, he just happens to drink blood. It's like, what? I can give a pint every once in a while. That's not too bad.
I mean, yeah. So like it was Vampire Diaries, True Blood,
Yeah.
and Twilight were like the big
And
three.
they happened within very quick succession of each
Oh yeah.
other. So there was
Oh
just
yeah.
this like vampire craze, like, oh man, spice up the bedroom with some Halloween toys.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that was just no. I'm gonna stand by no.
Yeah, no.
All right, hon. Let me go get some body glitter, and I'll put in the prosthetics.
Friggin' A. But yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So there was also like during the time when like Buffy was like really big. There was a graphic novel called 30 Days of Night which came out and was after that turned into a movie. Um, which I think is I think it's a pretty good movie, quite frankly, for vampire
That's the
movies.
one where they get stranded in Alaska during like the time periods when there's no sun.
Yeah, yeah. It's that time frame when when like winter be like dead of winter when it becomes night all the time, and like these vampires whom like don't speak English and I don't think speak any kind of language that I'm acquainted with. Like it might be some kind of version of like Russian, but I don't know for sure.
Hmm.
But yeah, these troop of vampires show up and they just don't care that everybody knows immediately that they're vampires because there's only like so many people in town and they have no way to get home. Like they have no way to like call out. They just come in systematically, like cut the town off and raid through eating everybody.
Yeah.
It was
And that's also another one of the things about vampires, which is you don't really think of it as something to fear, but their intelligence.
yeah,
We've talked about how some of them can be so monstrous it's really just the hunger driving them,
right.
but some of them retain knowledge after they've been turned. And
Yes.
the fact that they can use that against other people is really scary.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, convoy.
Oh, did com huh.
Yeah.
Oh, there you are.
Um,
It didn't show up for me for a little bit
oh,
there.
no. I mean, he just popped in. I just got the friend notification that came up.
Oh, gotcha.
Um,
But yeah, we're talking about like basically changing lore of creatures, and we were talking about vampires.
yeah, we've been mostly talking about like origins and uh like how it spreads and like how that's different for the
Hmm.
most part. Um, but yeah, Yeah, vampires. Ugh.
Hmm.
But anyways, um,
So it's that interesting thing of like the whole question of would you like to become a vampire, and that
right.
that stems from what do you think vampires are.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people nowadays who would say yes,
Sure, why not?
sure, why not, because they ascribe to the video game. I still have control of my character. I just
Right.
have to wear like an overcoat or an umbrella and I should be fine. And I might drop by a blood bank.
Right, right. Or like in the movie Blade, like whoever the Stephen Dorff's character, like in Blade One, like literally just wipes a little bit of sunscreen off of his face and it starts to like singe a little bit. He's like, sunscreen, bitches. It's the 20th century. I was
Yeah.
like, crap, how the fuck did nobody ever think of that before?
Yeah. But yeah, so if you ascribe to that vampire thing, then maybe a vampire's for you. But if you
Right.
ascribe to the old vampires, then you're basically saying, well, do I give up being me entirely and driven to hunger and, going after my family first and turning all them and, basically destroying all of our lives?
Yeah.
No.
No.
So
I
yeah.
stand by. But like to sort of because we've been talking about vamps for almost an hour, or for I guess close to like 40 minutes at this point.
Yeah.
Um, like to sort of like do a soft transition. There is a type of like monster that I don't think has a whole lot that has changed for their mythology for terribly long. It's werewolves.
Yeah. You're right. I mean, I'll agree. There's different kinds, and it's based on frequency of being able to turn into a werewolf.
Right, right,
Like there's the like original. It's a wolf man. It's in the woods, and that's what it is.
right.
Then there's the every full moon, those weird hermits in the woods that you see become werewolves.
Yes.
Then there's the ones that if it's nighttime, it's a werewolf, and then there's the ones that are like they can change when they want to.
Yeah. And like weirdly, I think that list is like,
I mean, it shows how impatient we've gotten as a society, right?
yeah, no,
Like over time, it's like, nah, once a month is too damn long. I want to
right.
change every day. It's
Well,
like,
and then,
nope, nope, nope. It's the age of Facebook and Twitter. If I want to change into a werewolf now, I want to change into a werewolf now.
well, there is also like that. There is also that like subcategory of like people like werewolves who can change whenever they want, where they can change whenever they want, and then it's mandatory that they turn into a wolf on the full moon.
Yes, yeah.
They
So it's a
don't have
little bit of
control.
both.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Like, they don't have control over that. Like it's the full moon. It's time to be a werewolf. That's that.
yeah. And then of course the consciousness also changes too. Like
Right.
one of them's just you're a complete beast man. You rampage. You better make sure that when slash if you transform, you're in like a remote location so that you don't hurt anybody like on purpose. And
Right.
like you get a cattle.
Yeah.
And
Like
that
totally.
that's like a good night.
Right. Right. um. And yeah, there's like, is that picking up?
Is it like barking?
Yeah. There's our dog upstairs, and he's just freaking out.
Hmm.
All right. Well, um. Anyways, so there's like been a couple different origins for like werewolves. There's like obviously the one that most people know about, which is like, oh, a werewolf bit me, and now I become a werewolf.
Yeah.
um.
Of course, there's always the like I always like how did you survive?
Right. Well, I mean, and like there's like a couple pieces of media, none of which I can remember the name of, that actually like address that. It's kind of like I was running away from this werewolf, and like I managed to like get inside a building, or like through a gate, or like over something that like prevented them from getting me. Um and like but like the wolf nicks them, right? Like gets a bite or gets a scratch, and like, but like doesn't get to the full mauling.
Yeah.
Yeah, those people who get mauled, they don't usually turn.
Gosh, imagine if they did. Ugh.
Yeah, right. Um, but yeah, that's that's like one of the common ways I've like seen.
Yeah, I don't
Uh,
beyond that I can't actually think of another transformation method
right. There's a
other than I suppose like spiritual slash occult
right,
where like
right,
you're gifted the aspect of the wolf.
right. No, absolutely. And there's I guess if we want to like talk about that a little bit, we can. Like, there's a so like some like in mythology, there's like some like Norse berserkers who would like try to take in the spirit of the wolf and like and or like the spirit of the bear, and they would use that like ferocity to like go and like way lay waste to their enemies.
I like
So
weighing laced too.
way laced, yes, way laced to their enemies, and and like yeah, like that was a good way to get yourself psyched, I guess. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
a lot of people, so
I take the aspect of the chipmunk.
dude,
Damn it,
wow.
Jerry! It's
Those
the
chipmunks,
bear.
oh,
Like the battle ends and they come back. It's like he's like trying to stuff like children's skulls into his cheeks. Like Jerry. And then you have like a whole tribe that realizes how effective like the rabid chipmunk aspect is.
right. The chipmunk berserkers, man.
The chipmunk
You don't want to fuck
berserkers. They're wild, they're agile, and they go straight for the nuts.
legit.
Watch out
Oh,
for your cashews, man.
right. There's actually also a German myth from I don't remember when, um, about a thing called the Hexenwolfen, which is basically a like you make a deal with some kind of demon, and they give you a wolf's pelt belt, which you then like fasten around your waist, and when you do that, you turn into like this demon wolf,
Hmm.
and like bigger and nastier than like regular wolves, and like you would kind of lose yourself if you like in that like in that wolf if you stayed as that form for too long.
Yeah.
Nobody figured out your secret, that it was just a piece of like that was just like a fur belt. They could take that off of you and you would return back into a human.
Hmm.
And of course it leads to like situations with like Bilbo and Gollum, like, right, like, shit, you took my special magic thing.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah,
Yeah.
there's also like the Lugaroo,
Oh yeah.
which
Oh
is
yeah.
more like it's not man beast, it's more like gigantic wolf.
Yeah. um there are some renditions or like rememberings of the Lugaroo as like a terrible like wolf monster.
Hmm.
I tend to think of them like kind of like dire wolves, like just
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
huge and ferocious and like ready to eat anything.
Yeah. Now, of
Um,
course, more in like the D&D and like Elder Scrolls style, there's more than just werewolves. There's bears, rats,
right.
boars.
Yeah.
So like it's the same sort of idea, just you swapped the animal.
Right. And to get back to like our what I was saying earlier about our previous Dresden Files games, you played a were-gator,
I played a were-gator, and
which was
that was a pure transformation. I wasn't half man, half gator. My person actually turned into an alligator.
it was awesome.
Um,
It was
yeah,
super.
it's really cool because if you think about it, like if you're talking about different qualities of animals and applying it to humans, like werewolves are, it's actually really interesting. Most of the time they describe them as either lone werewolves, which are the lone wolf, scary, like sort of like really aggressive, or the
Right.
pack werewolves that work well together and sort of take that whole packed instinct to take out prey together.
Yeah.
But then like you get stuff like my weregator character, who took the whole ambush predator thing. So he was super sneaky. And when he clamped down on someone, he clamped down because that's a lot of fucking pressure from from a gator mouth.
Right, right. Yeah, no, they're
Plus
that was
swimming.
oh yeah, no, absolutely. And like I don't know, it was kind of interesting seeing you play a character that like had human level intelligence but with a gator's physique.
Yes.
Like, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. Yeah.
Um but yeah, so like I don't know. It, can you think of a of like a werewolf weakness other than silver?
Actually, it's really funny you mentioned that. Um, I saw this, I forget where I saw this, but it was this really silly thing where it was like, so how do you kill a werewolf? With silver bullets? Okay. Can I kill it with fire? I mean,
I mean, like I guess you could.
I mean, you could, and then it's like, well, can you kill it by beheading? And then like, I, I guess, and then they're like, well, can I kill it with a Gatling gun? And
I don't know. Silver bullets in it.
well, no, if you think about it, like some of those like super high powered, like the ones that actually purr when they're full, like full auto freaking like they actually just turn people into Swiss cheese and like can cut things in half. Like that's how
Yeah,
many bullets fly to them.
yeah, yeah.
Like it's actually hilarious how weaponry has gone so far that like we can go beyond the options of just I have a steak and some garlic,
Right.
you know.
No, no, for sure. But I mean, like, it's a question of whether or not the werewolfism is like the lycanthropy is whether or not it's like mystical or not, right?
Yeah,
Because if it's mystical,
exactly.
then all your modern weapons don't mean shit unless
Yeah.
they're silver, because like silver is the weakness. If they're just if they're just biological, then who cares, right? Like
Yeah,
if
you can apply all of your,
by
Wolverine or Deadpool torture methods to kill them.
exactly, exactly. Like any living, breathing creature that is not powered in some way by magic is going to die to modern weaponry.
Yeah.
Unless you're Wolverine, in which case you have what is basically magic regeneration.
Yeah.
I guess Deadpool also, but still.
Yeah.
A single cell survived, regenerate the whole thing.
Yeah.
um, yeah, that is madness and also magic. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, like unless that is the level of which your I mean, like if you have that kind of magic in your werewolves, like it doesn't matter how badass the thing is, your nuclear warhead better have a silver tip on it.
God, imagine holy shit. Imagine a nuclear werewolf. Like
Oh yeah,
its furs like like molted a bit and like it's like sort of like those dogs that you find in Fallout. They're
right.
like mangy and stuff.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay. So think about this. Like, if it was in Fallout, what if a ghoul contracted lycanthropy?
Holy shit.
Like, I think that's what it would be like, right?
It'd be like a giant naked mole rat.
Yeah, except that it wouldn't be one of those because those are actually things that you can fight.
It would be like a Deathclaw naked mole rat.
Yes, that sounds more accurate.
Which honestly, like, fucking A.
Right, right.
Taking
But yeah,
Hyperfang to a whole new level.
I mean that's true.
Yeah. Freaking A. But yeah,
Right. So
werewolves have basically stayed the same for a long time. And you know what I think it is they're so monstrous that I don't think humanity can be found in them that often.
right. I think you're onto something with that, right?
Like,
Like
of course you can have like the rugged like the guy who's dressed all in plaid who just cut down a tree who also seems to be a werewolf and is like,
right.
"I'm home, honey." Like that sort of like rugged like, "Oh man."
Right, oh, absolutely.
But like beyond that, like it's a fucking werewolf. Like, if it transforms, it's going to eat you.
Yeah.
Like that whole like your control is lost and you've become a beast is very very like
I,
adamant in that.
and I think that's why like werewolves like haven't ever needed to change, because you've got this aspect of humanity already like wrapped up in them, because they're a person who's suffering this terrible like mystical disease that can't be cured.
Mm-hmm.
And like every month they have to like go off and like make excuses and do something like away from everybody else so that they won't hurt anybody. And then like when they transform, they turn into this utter like monster, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Hey Dan, Pat, how's it going?
yeah.
Yes, we were
um
talking about what if ghouls from Fallout 4 contracted lycanthropy and turned into werewolves. We thought they'd turn into something that was basically like a giant naked mole rat.
Giant naked mole rat slash death claw
Because
thing.
it has to walk on two legs.
Yeah, basically.
Although I would love to see like a were armadillo as like this giant like lumbering half roly poly thing, or freaking a penguin, a were
Fine.
penguin would be
It'd be funny
hilarious. Just
I'll
this
see if I can
lumbering, you hear like footsteps in the distance, boom, boom, boom.
right.
It's the last thing you hear.
Let's see if I can find a dire armadillo and then also a dire penguin.
Oh man,
Images.
that'd be
I'm getting
awesome.
pictures of penguins for dire armadillos.
Well, there you go. I mean, they are.
I mean, right. Also some prehistoric shit, but yeah.
Yeah, the
Generally
prehistoric shit.
speaking.
Oh, now that would take it to a whole new level. Jurassic Park meets Underworld,
That'd
where
be
they
nice.
bioengineer lycanthropy with dinosaurs.
That'd be nuts.
That would be nuts.
Okay. Okay. I think I've got one that's kind of cool.
All right, let me see.
Check it.
Well, I mean, I don't know where you got the armor from, but that's pretty cool.
Obviously turned him into a riding penguin as well.
It's probably better in water,
Right, right.
but yeah, friggin' A. Werewolves.
Yeah, that's all I'm seeing so far that's any good. I've just hit the point where I'm looking at regular pictures of penguins. So
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, aren't emperor penguins supposed to be close to like 5 foot or 6 foot tall?
yeah,
Like you see them on an iceberg and you don't think that, holy shit, that thing might actually be taller than me.
Yeah, no, that's legit. Let me look up the Wikipedia entry.
For penguins.
Yeah, yeah. Well, no, emperor penguin specifically.
But yeah.
48 inches. Yeah, so like 4 feet tall.
Yeah, 4 feet tall. Okay.
Weigh approximately 100 pounds.
Yeah. I mean, they're pretty sizable creatures already.
I mean, yeah, they can fuck you up.
It was a dark night. I heard some squalling in the distance and the cracking of wing knuckles.
So good. Oh man. So on that wonderful note, dire penguins and whatnot. So let's talk about the thing that we avoided talking about originally, zombies.
Zombies.
So how has the zombie changed from the time that it originated, like the original myth, to like what it is now, right?
Now it's actually pretty funny because zombies and vampires were kind of synonymous at one point.
Right,
Like,
right.
you know, probably at some point it was originally like the European zombie, and then like someone was just like, oh yeah, and they also ate somebody, and then like this whole thing started. You know,
Well,
how
no.
tall tales are woven.
Right, right. The original term, not that it was originally pronounced this way, but like zombies originate out of voodoo.
Yeah. So we're talking the difference of undead and zombie, right? Because
Right.
different ways of looking at it.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
when you
for
think
sure.
of undead, it's usually magical in origin,
Right,
or it's superstition fueled.
right. And I mean, originally zombies were also magic, right? Like
Yeah,
when it comes to when it comes to like the original like voodoo lore and everything, like it's powered by voodoo magic.
yeah, exactly.
Um, and yeah, for a long time, for like a long time, zombies were like literally just magic. There was no such thing as like a biological
No,
zombie.
and there were a few differences. Like there was the undead that ate other corpses, which were more like the ghouls,
Ghouls, yeah,
and then there were the ones that went after people.
yep, yeah. And like originally, you would send a zombie with like a mission. Like you would raise them with voodoo magic and give them like a task to do, and the
Hmm.
zombies would do that thing.
Yeah,
Um, at some point along the line, zombies started to eat brains, and like that was the only thing they wanted to eat. They only wanted to eat brains.
I don't even know how that started.
Gotta smash open that skull and eat that delicious gray matter, man.
Yeah,
Like I it was like a '50s movie thing.
yeah, I guess so.
Like I don't know why somebody decided that. Like if anybody who's listening knows, please let us know. I would be
The
interested.
only thing I can think, and this is just a total guess, but it was like, I guess what, like Night of the Living Dead or something like that, and like their literal goal was how freaking gross can we get to like
Right.
simulate the total like disembowelment of another human being and consumed by people. And I believe
Right.
there was actually a thing in Night of the Living Dead where extras that would eat sweetbread or cow brain would
Right.
actually get paid better than people who ate fake brains.
Yeah, that's kind of hilarious, actually.
Yeah, yeah. So that, I think that's where it started, but it was this director's choice to basically have something be that disgusting and
Right.
vile.
Right.
Imagine being, so wait, I have to eat this, and they're like in full zombie makeup.
Yeah, yeah.
I have to eat that thing on that
Oh,
plate right there.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
disgusting. I'm sorry. And then some other guy's like, I get to make an extra $50. Ah! I'm like, get that on camera now.
I got the camera. Get the bib off of him. But yeah, man, like and then at some point it went back to being like just eat human flesh. It didn't matter what flesh.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then of
Um,
course, the turning of zombies sort of evolved, right? One was, it was a dead corpse and now it's alive.
right.
Like it wasn't a contagion, it wasn't some sort of magical, transference of necromantic power. It was dead, now it's alive, and its purpose is to fuck someone's day up.
Yep. Um, yeah, and then somewhere along the line it turned into like if you were bitten by a zombie, you could be like infected by its whatever made it a zombie. Like just to like overgeneralize. Whatever the heck was powering the zombiness, you could catch it and it was
Yeah.
bad. And I also think that probably started happening like in and around the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Mostly because it was like and like this gets a little bit into like the socio-political climate of the time. Like 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 AIDS was big, man. Like everyone was afraid they were going to get the AIDS.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, I remember
and like
my grandparents told me stories that they would bring their own silverware to restaurants because they couldn't trust the wait staff to wash it because they didn't know how it was contracted. It was
right,
this whole mystery of,
how does one get AIDS?
yeah, how does one get AIDS, and they had no idea. And I guess that sort of fueled the whole, well, friggin' it's really easy to get zombified too.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, like that's honestly a thing that happened. There was a resurgence, and like again, this kind of delves a little bit more into the psyche of the people who are making the fiction rather than the actual fiction itself. Um, but like depending on who's like in political office, you are more likely to see, you are more likely to see zombie or vampire movies be produced in America,
Hmm.
which I think is hilarious, quite honestly. Um,
Although, I have to say, there's the American modern zombie, right?
right.
And you either have the shamblers or the runners.
Oh God. Okay. Yeah. Let's hit on that real quick. So there's this little game that came out in the '90s. I don't know if anybody here has ever heard of it, but it's called Resident Evil. Resident Evil changed the zombie game, people.
Yeah, it
Like,
did.
Resident Evil was like, yeah, so biological warfare. We can use this to our advantage, and like came up with the whole thing that goes along with the movie, and like the Umbrella Corporation, which was a just a catch-all for any evil like medical corp from the '90s era, like it just we can science zombies. Let's
Yeah.
do that. And like they scienced up zombies, and zombies got really sexy for like half a second until they actually zombified, and it was really gross. Um, but like, yeah, you've got this modern notion that not only can you just like because people don't magic zombies anymore,
No, no.
like you science zombies now.
Yeah, it's true. The whole magic zombies is sort of gone the wayside right now.
Right, right. It's very much a question of what new innovative way can we use science to verify our supposition of like the zombie plague. And it's kind of ridiculous like how good people are at finding ways to like rationalize like how zombie viruses work.
My favorite is the kind from The Last of Us.
Oh yeah, no, those are awesome. We talked about that a few days
Yeah, we
ago.
talked about that because we were going through Vault 22 in Fault New Vegas, and they had the spore people, and that spore is a real thing, although not the same name in the game. It's essentially a fungus that takes control of creatures, and basically forces them into a process that gets them eaten by another creature, so that they can produce their eggs in that other creature.
Yep. And like the extremely like narrow niche that this fungus has managed to like
Oh, is it the same name?
I found a Wikipedia entry, Convoy, and it was not by the same name, but I was thinking of the ones that were that infect leafcutter ants in South America.
Oh, so you're looking for that specific
I was
one.
looking for a different one, yeah.
Okay.
Um,
There's another one. It's really fucking creepy. I'm not sure if it's a larva, but it infects snails, and it like does this weird thing to their eyes where essentially they pulsate. It like takes over their eye stalks, and
that's
they
weird.
it's like really flashy, and essentially they search for sunlight, and like birds eat them.
Uh, that's weird.
Yeah, so
I,
there's a lot of very interesting like sort of these weird mind control parasites basically,
right, right,
whether fungal or otherwise.
right. No, and like, ugh. um,
Yeah, right.
there's some major body horror that goes on with like a lot of modern day like horror stuff,
Oh yeah.
and I think that actually says I think that in itself is like a social commentary, which I will avoid ranting about.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah, correct, Convoy. The name is just slightly different.
Oh, okay, yeah. So it's probably in the same family but not the same species or something like that.
And actually, the guys who like wrote that bit of Fallout New Vegas might have been smart enough to just be like, well, this is the actual thing. It's different in the game, so let's change the name.
Yeah,
And like
yeah.
they could have actually like been smart about that.
Yeah.
Um,
I assume they are cuz Fall New
Really,
Vegas is a fantastic game, so
right, right,
I'll be playing
uh,
that.
for sure. um, but yeah, so like, The Last of Us zombies are crazy.
Yeah.
Um, they like if you look at like the way the Last of Us zombies like are like they actually have like an incredibly fungal like evolution.
Hmm.
Like they go from just being regular people with sight and stuff to like having like their head popped open and like they like actually like navigate by sound instead of by sight.
Yep.
And then there's like a couple other steps that are like specialized. You get like weird like super zombies and stuff, but like those boss characters aside, yeah, there's like they actually have like stages of development that you get to see as you continue to play the game. It's
Yeah.
it's super cool actually.
All right. I'll see you later, Convoy. Have a good one.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, yeah, zombies have really they've changed a lot,
changed a lot.
and
Like
that is it's a very interesting one because literally we're talking about something that like even on the outside is just like the shadow of what once was human. Like we're
right,
not even talking like vampires, like where you could masquerade as one. We're talking like that might have been my fucking Aunt Sally at one point, but like her eyes hanging out and like her nose fell off and like what the
like
fuck? Like
for obviously a dead corpse.
yes, yeah.
Um, and yeah, that's always a weird thing. Um, and like if we want to talk about like how you kill zombies, like there's
Oh
been a
yeah.
lot of things about that too. Like sometimes it's like you have to burn them, or you have to like, or like you can't, like their flesh is animate no matter what, and like you have to like chop off all their limbs and hope and like
Yeah,
put their
yeah,
head.
because there's the whole yeah, you could there's the whole decapitation thing, which is normal. But then there's like it's more on the magic side where like you
Right.
could cut off a zombie's hand and the hand will still crawl after you. It can't actually eat you, but it'll try to do something to maim you.
It like scratch you and like pull on you or distract you or like choke you if it gets you on the ground. Like zombie hands are creepy, man.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And headless zombies too.
Headless zombies are awful.
They
Uh,
somehow know where you are despite not having a head.
right. No real sensory organs except for like feel, and they don't like they still know.
Yeah.
Well, and like there's actually like this other thing about zombies where like some of them have like this extra sensory ability to sense living beings because
I've yes, that's more of a newer thing, but yeah, that's a really cool thing.
it was really prevalent in was it Day of the Dead? I think it was Day of the Dead, where everybody's trapped in the mall. Um,
I remember that.
yeah, like
The zombie baby.
there's no outward appearance that there are people inside this mall ever, but more and more zombies just keep piling up outside until there's just this mass of people. Well, zombies like out in front, like they're just completely like in the entire like street. Like there's no room.
Yeah, like and it almost goes into like a hive mind situation.
A little,
Like
a
sure
little.
there's only like 6 people in here, but like they're all thinking I'm getting a piece of that.
Right. No, like and like every single zombie thinks that's true.
Yeah.
Um and yeah, it's intense. Like it's like zombie like where zombies have gone is crazy. And what you said earlier about runners, best example I've always like thought of in terms of like running zombies is 28 Days Later.
Oh yeah.
Like
Fucking A.
they're the scariest zombies that are like just regular zombies.
No, because yeah, there's the shamblers, and like literally, if you walked at a brisk pace and just paid attention to like roots or anything that might be obstructing your path, you could easily like walk away from them.
Right.
Like these things, like you better find a place to hide and board up or something because they will chase you down, and you might
Right.
not be fast enough because they might actually have. And here's another thing that's newer: the whole like extra like use of their muscles
Right.
beyond pain and stuff like that because they don't feel pain and so they can use their muscles to like these whole new levels of strength because although it's dead flesh it can just do more stuff.
Right. Without like the limitation of worrying about whether or not your muscles are going to like, or whether or not you're hurting yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they just continue to like berserk through it, and yeah, no, like the the rage zombies are really scary.
Yeah, they totally are.
I can safely say I never want that to be real.
Yeah, so and actually this is pretty funny. I will mention this that I am very deeply disturbed visually by zombies. And there are
Right.
certain zombies I'm not. Like the clicker zombies and like the mushroom zombies, I think those are cool. That's a really cool idea. I don't like the ones where like you can see their intestines and like it's like a lot of disfigurement.
Right.
Like Oblivion zombies are really terrible and I don't
Oi,
like them at all.
his insides are on his outsides.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
that.
right. Like yeah, it's but there's some like so like I can't watch The Walking Dead.
Right.
I saw
But
one scene where there was a zombie going after someone in a car, and because of the way the glass from the windshield was, it like peeled its face off. And I was like, fuck that. I'm not watching that ever again. Because like that is I just couldn't deal.
they kind of like step back a little bit on like exactly how like body horror the zombies are after season one. Like they're still like horribly mangled and like desiccated and rotting corpses and stuff, but like there's less of the like this zombie is peeling his own face off in order to eat this person. And like there was one where there was like this zombie that like didn't have like a bottom half, was just like the top of their body, and they were like crawling along because they were gonna like eat somebody, and like didn't care at all.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, their brain was still completely intact, like they still had their head, so they were like, oh well, I'm perfectly fine, I don't feel this pain of not having legs.
Yeah, yeah, right. And I
Yeah,
guess
no,
that's
like,
another thing that's freaky too, right? You could stab a zombie and nothing will happen.
right,
Like
yeah, they're
you really got to go out of your way to do something significant to knock them out.
exactly.
Like
And when you throw into, and I think the thing ultimately that is that is like freakier about zombies than about like other monsters that we've talked about so far, is that uh, they're the majority.
yes, usually when we're talking about zombies, it's an apocalypse, it's an outbreak. It's not like this small group from a cemetery or, a hospital like in the middle of nowhere. It's
Right.
fucking everywhere and somehow you survived.
And even when it is one of those situations where it's only like a single cemetery, it's like a big cemetery or like the town's biggest cemetery, and like for whatever reason the only people who are still hanging around are like these five college students, or like or like a family, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like it's, if we're gonna talk like horror movie tropes, because
Oh
that's
yeah, totally.
that's what we got into. Um,
Actually, it was
and
really
like,
funny. Remember the one time in college we had that role playing game and it was just basically like a zombie apocalypse game.
I mean, I've played and run several of those.
But like it's actually really funny like how many like sort of like wood shop and like different things come in handy that you wouldn't think
Yeah,
would actually like if you think about it, a lot of people are way more skilled for a zombie apocalypse than they are any mundane job.
right.
Like
I
it's
mean,
actually kind of cool how prepared and trained people are for something that's never happened.
yeah. I mean, it is interesting, like, and it's because of like the time we live in, like more so I think now than any other time. Like people people in like your and my cohort are consuming the media of what happens when the world ends. Because I think I there are times when I see the dark future fast approaching, right? And
We won't go any farther than that, but I understand what
right.
you're talking about. Yes.
I I can't say that there's ever going to be a time in which the world, like, or like society as we know it, like breaks down completely. But if it happens, I feel a little bit more prepared, having seen other people give me examples of when the world stopped working the way it's supposed to.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, I actually have a real friend who is who's like a zombie prepper. Like, and he's just like, look, man, I don't actually think that there's going to be a zombie apocalypse, but I am ready for that if it happens. and that means I'm safer than any other contingent that I can come up with. And,
Yep.
and like, as crazy as he is, he's got a point.
Yeah.
Like he's figured it out, like how to fortify his home against an incursion of undead people who feel no pain. Nobody else is going to get in.
Yeah. I mean, actually, if you're zombie prepped, you're prepped for almost anything.
And like that's his point, right? Like
Yeah.
he's just like, I'm set.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, yeah.
If you can like safely and comfortably live in the confines of your own home for, I don't know, 6 months. After that 6 month period, either you can go out and you can like get more provisions, or something bad's gonna happen, like namely starving to death or like dying of thirst. But
Yeah.
um,
Thirst comes first.
Yeah, thirst does come first. But I mean, he's got like a water recycling system, so I'm not concerned about that part. I personally never want to own a water recycling system. It kind of makes me feel gross.
By the way, for survival situations, you drink all of your water.
Yes.
You don't want to ration it at all, because
No.
essentially what you're doing is you're basically dehydrating yourself slowly, as opposed to taking in all the water first, and then you basically have it in your system.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Otherwise it's this slow and body torturous, like,
Right.
dehydration.
Right. For sure. And like, what is it? There's actually like an end of the world like filter straw that you can purchase nowadays that like,
Oh yeah,
actually,
I've seen that.
and like it's really cool because like it actually makes like non-potable water from in like less good parts of the world like able to be drunk without like complicated like distillation equipment or anything like that. You just like go scoop up some water, take it home, and then drink it out of the straw that costs like $15.99. And granted, that might have been most of or all of your entire year's wages, but now you have clean water.
Yeah.
I mean, that's cool.
Yeah,
I definitely like absolutely saw it for real, like getting used on Good Mythical Morning.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Sweet.
they Rhett and Link like drank each other's pee. They were
course,
like,
of course they would.
They were like, this is gonna be so gross, and they did it. And they were like, I mean, it has a slightly ammonia flavor, but it's actually still water. They're like, I'm not gonna drink any more of this, thanks.
I think we should put post-apocalyptic survival as another topic,
I will definitely drop that down there real quick. Post-apocalyptic survival.
or just survival in general, post-apocalyptic and otherwise.
Post-apocalyptic or otherwise survival.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, and that's like what we've talked about, like what 3 different type of like monsters, and there's like so many more.
Oh no, totally. Like, gosh, there's so many monsters.
Talk about ghosts, right?
Yeah, freaking A. Ghosts could be a huge amount of things.
I mean, yeah, and then you get like down into your like different classifications of ghost, and then like, because like a banshee is technically a ghost, right? But it's a very specific kind.
Yeah. Sometimes a siren's considered a ghost.
Sometimes, yeah. Other time, like, and if you go back like to like Roman myth, it's just like a crazy sea monster.
Yeah. So like it's pretty wild, like what different types of monsters there are. We might do a part 2 of this, I think.
I think so too.
Just because there's a lot to cover.
Oh, for sure. And like, I'm sitting here thinking about it. Like, there's a lot of things that actually like get misnamed a lot too. People are just like, oh yeah, I've heard about this thing before. It's this. We'll just put that in our fiction. And then like you go and you do the research on it, and it's like that's not the thing at all.
Yeah, like I isn't the original Cthulhu supposed to be a quadruped with wings, not a bipedal?
The original uh the original like creation of H.P. Lovecraft's Call of Cthulhu was like indescribable.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
It had these enormous draconian wings, like the like squid head and like this like dragon's body kind of thing. Um, like yeah, it was, but like in addition to all those things, like that was just the only reasonable, rational human way to describe what it was because it doesn't look like that.
Hmm.
Like that is the impression that the viewer was supposed to have, or rather did have, like because he tells us that's the impression that he had. Um,
But like it's
but
like any other thing where you're trying to describe an animal using other animal parts,
exactly,
and it's not going to look exactly like that.
exactly, especially when that animal doesn't come from Earth.
Yeah, exactly.
Like yeah, like it was as close an approximation that could be provided as possible, and it was but it was never like I don't think it was ever H.P. Lovecraft's intention to be like, and this is what Cthulhu looks like. I think it was his intention to say, and this is as good as I can get to describing what it was. It
Yeah.
was not like that at all. It was mind wrenching. Like
Yeah.
you look at it and it looks like this amalgamation of parts, but it is a living, breathing thing. I cannot even tell you what that is like. Um, and he gets that way a lot about most of his like monsters. The term indescribable is used a lot.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, like the modern day interpretation of Cthulhu, right on down to the ones that are like super cute, are are kind of hilarious.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Like I mean, like there's the what like Cthulhu for 2016 president, and it's
oh
like in a
god,
business suit, and like
yeah, yeah, wearing the business suit, just Cthulhu's head.
yeah, yeah, with like the Uncle Sam hat.
Yeah, yeah, it's really funny
Yeah,
actually.
yeah, it is. Yeah.
Um, but I like that enough. I like that enough. Nerds and like
You're not even people, just nerds.
nerds. I like that enough nerds have finally like embraced Cthulhu as like a thing that's awesome and real. Um, because there was a long time when like H.P. Lovecraft's like works, while we're like super cult knowledge.
Mm.
Um, but like if I say Cthulhu to like a great deal of the people who are like in my age group, they know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
But like if we go up to like my mom who like is 60 something, um and I like mentioned that there was something about Cthulhu in a game that we had played recently, and she was like, what? And I was like, oh, you don't know that.
Yeah.
let me get into the awkward situation where I have to describe what Cthulhu is.
Exactly, right?
Right. And like and the thing is that I could probably even do the same thing like to my dad, right? Like, and he's like super nerdy. Like they're both super nerdy, quite honestly. I'm not surprised. But like I don't I think like if I was talking to my dad about HP Lovecraft, he'd be like, "Who?"
Yeah.
And he's like, HP Lovecraft is more contemporary to his time than he is to my time.
Yeah. So that is weird that it basically skipped a generation of popularity there.
I mean, Lovecraft was writing in the 20s, right?
Yeah, so like
It's like there's several generations that they
like
skipped.
how did that happen?
Right. But yeah, it's like that happens with some artists sometimes, right? Like
Yeah,
they're
like you have to
you
be
know,
dead a long time before you
yeah,
get famous, that sort of thing. Yeah.
like their paintings keep getting passed around and people are like, hey, I just regift it, and they just give it to somebody else. But at some point, someone like who has artistic style like sees it and is like, what is that? I'll pay you money for this. And they're like, okay, whatever. We just keep gifting it to each other every year.
We're like a museum. We keep swapping paintings.
Right. And like, and this person's like, oh, fine, I will give you $50 for it, sold. And then like they take it and they're like, yes, it is one of the great masterpieces. I shall sell it for thousands of dollars. And like, because one person thinks it's awesome, like it gets sent off and then it becomes a thing. Um, but yeah, like I think I really think that Lovecraft like became a cult following, and this isn't supported by any documentation. It's just sort of like my recollection based on how media has worked. Um, I think I think he really became sort of like a cult figure in like the 70s or the 80s.
Mm.
Because that was when things like that was when you started to like see any kind of media that related to Lovecraft. And like there's a in the 90s, was it just the 90s? It might have been the 80s or the 90s. I don't remember 100%. But like the Call of Cthulhu role playing game was like first made.
Mm.
And like that was when some people, mostly nerds who are really into role playing games, learned about Cthulhu. But like now it's like more nerds, but they're not like just gaming nerds.
Yeah.
So that's a thing. I think honestly, it kind of like hit its stride in like the 90s when like you started to see like Cthulhu references in like video games and stuff.
Yeah, it's true.
There's actually a hilarious Cthulhu reference in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them.
Oh, is there really? Still haven't seen the
Um,
movie yet, but
right. No spoilers. There's just a reference to Cthulhu. I'm certain you'll recognize it immediately.
cool.
um, but yeah, like so there's that whole thing where like there's this evolving kind of notion about how uh like how you like determine what Cthulhu looks like. Somebody drew him once, and like that has become like the iconic. This is what Cthulhu looks like, um, because people are so ready to accept an image of Cthulhu because they want to, right?
Yeah.
Not because that was ever Lovecraft's intention.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so like that's actually a pretty modern uh, representation of like what you do with Cthulhu, right? Like,
Hmm.
although I do have this one weird thing about Cthulhu. Like, he shows up in a lot of media, and like, there's this notion that you put Cthulhu in something in order to like give somebody a challenge, but I don't think that's right. Like, Cthulhu is not a challenge. Cthulhu is a wall, like a wall that
Yeah.
you can't even actually like hit with a hammer, right? Like,
He's an elder god.
right, yeah,
Like
like
we're not talking about a zombie or a
no,
vampire or a werewolf. Like weaknesses, none,
none, none known.
none known, none known by the mortal span of time, which is to say
Right,
nothing.
right, exactly. And like especially when like you stop to consider that there's like this passage about Cthulhu about how he is like he's both present in this dimension but also present in like a different time, like how like Cthulhu lies in deeper lay,
Mm.
in like deepest slumber, like, but Relay isn't
Interesting.
on Earth. Like they find him on Earth, but like the city that they're finding him in isn't actually part of Earth at all.
Yeah.
Like, it's this whole weird thing. And anyways, to get away from that whole like discussion real quick, because like I could
Hashtag Cthulhu
hashtag Cthulhu.
problems is another thing.
That's absolutely right. Um, oh, hey, Death Pat, I didn't know you were still hanging out. Hey, George. um, but yeah, like like there's this notion somehow that like if like especially for like video game players or like role playing gamers, like if it's in the game or if it has stats, you can kill it or you can somehow overcome it. But I think that's unfair to the source material.
Yeah.
It's like you can't even understand Cthulhu. How could I put stats to it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There's like a disconnect from the original source material and what it's being used for in popular media.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
I don't know. That's always a weird one for me.
Although I was like, what in Fallout 4, there's two references: Pikmin's
There's,
blade, and there's Krimva's tooth,
yep.
and those are both like, one is I think directly like Pikmin. Like, isn't that an actual story?
Yes, Pikmin's model is a story about a man named Pikmin who is showing off his new art gallery basically, and it's of these most atrocious like visages that anyone's ever seen. And like where does Pikmin come up with these atrocities? You must have a terribly depraved mind. No, he's drawing like actual things. Like he goes and he finds them, and like he puts pencil to paper. And like there's this like the narrator who is not Pikmin is like talks to Pikmin and convinces him to like let him see one of his like his art sessions, and Pikmin takes him to like this warehouse and he's got like a ghoul chained up and he like throws a person to it, and like it's a horrifying thing. And like the guy is like, I was so terrified that I lost myself and there was only blackness, but like when I came to, I was nowhere near where Pikmin was. And but I never went back to his art gallery.
Freaking A. But yeah,
Right.
so they took the whole I have an occult artifact rather than I'm fighting Cthulhu, which is
Right,
you know,
right.
that's sort of, well, this thing will probably slowly drive you insane or overtake you at one point, when your playthrough's over. But for the time being, you'll kick ass with it.
Right. For the time being, it's super cool.
Yeah. Hey, MCT, how's it going?
But yeah, like
But we'll save Cthulhu discussions for another day.
hashtag Cthulhu Problems is an upcoming one.
Yeah.
Not next week, probably. Probably. We'll see.
Yeah. There's still Amish role playing.
Oh my god. The Amish people are just LARPing is going to be great.
Oh man.
Oh man. Yeah. At some point, I'm pretty sure that I'm just going to have to like somehow like work out doing a stream for myself and just like going on and being like, okay, people, let me learn you about some role playing games.
Yeah, totally.
Right. Oh man. But anyways, yeah. So like, I don't know. I think like we only just touched on ghosts for like half a second, but like
I think we might have to come back to that some other point though.
I was about to suggest it as well. Just that we sort of backseat some of the other monsters and just go ahead, and I'm gonna like write up.
Put like a part 2 to this one. So yeah,
Right,
we covered vampires, werewolves, and zombies, and how their lore changes depending on region, depending on time, and it's actually pretty crazy with how to deal with them, kill them, change into them. It's kind of wild how that all changes.
Right, absolutely. Like, we'll have to actually like really get into like ghosts when it comes to like how ghosts are made, kind of thing.
Yeah,
That one's gonna be intense.
Because there's some cool lore about that as well.
Oh yeah, there is.
But yeah, we'll do a part 2 to this and include more monsters, and
Sure.
I'll have to get into I do actually have a cryptozoology book somewhere.
Ooh. I'll have to go ahead and like indulge Poison and watch some of those History Channel shows with her.
But not Ancient Aliens?
Not Ancient Aliens. That's a different one.
That's a different one?
Come on, man. Okay, so let me go ahead and I'm going to add another one to the list. It's just going to be Aliens.
It's called Ancient Aliens. Giorgio's our savior.
Right. Giorgio, our savior.
He warned us all this time, and we ignored him in his awesome hair.
The slowest abduction ever.
Yeah.
That's
Oh
not
shit.
mine. There was an internet meme I saw about that a long time ago. But yeah,
Freaking
that
A.
was good.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, woo.
Woo.
I
All right then. I think we covered some really cool stuff today.
think we did too.
I like there was a part of time like in my young age where I wanted to like grow up and be a cryptozoologist.
Right. That's a rough life, man.
That is a rough life. No, yeah, it was. And before that, I wanted to be a blacksmith. So
Right.
it transitioned from something that's totally outdated and useless to something that's totally outdated and useless. So
Although, to be fair, what you can do as a cryptozoologist is make a TV show for Discovery Channel
yes,
or Animal Planet or whoever will
but
allow
yeah,
it.
blacksmithing takes a lot of skill and time and all that sort of stuff, and you need
Yep.
your own workshop for that stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, dude, are you
Otherwise, you're like basically like burning yourself alive in the summer heat, or
right?
your anvil's so damn cold. As soon as you put a hot iron on it, it immediately just extinguishes, and all the heat is transferred to the giant cold anvil.
Yeah, yeah. It's no good. It's no good.
No.
I, uh, I mean, like, not that this is like even close to the scale that you work on, but like I keep like delaying on painting miniatures, which I think is like fun and awesome because I'm just like my cats are gonna ruin this for me.
No, totally
Seriously,
no.
start doing
Cats, the cats ruin everything.
it. Don't they?
I
Um,
have to take down that freaking Christmas tree because Daisy's starting to bite like the Christmas bulbs, and they're hardy like plastic stuff. I'm like, unplug, man.
right. Man, cats, they ruin
Last thing I
everything.
want to hear is and like freaking like the like oh like spread eagle like like seeing their skeleton and flashing.
Like in a cartoon or whatever.
Like yeah, exactly. I wonder where they got that whole
Like,
skeleton thing.
who knows, man? It was just it's Looney Tunes, man. They were
I don't
they
fucking know.
were an inventive bunch to say the least.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh man, so good.
freaking A. All right then. That cat right there. That's Lily.
Yeah, it is
Anywho, yeah, we'll stop there for our talk show today. I'm gonna transition to Fallout New Vegas and continue on with that. By the way, I am sorry I wasn't here yesterday. I went to the podiatrist and my feet fucking hurt like hell, and then I started getting a migraine, and I'm like, nobody
fun.
wants to see me playing a game and like wincing every once in a while in pain. So
I hear
quality entertainment. We can
you.
do this, guys. Oh, yeah.
It's
I'm over encumbered again. Common theme.
yeah, happens.
Yep. But yeah, so I will transition to the title screen. Everybody say goodbye to Saber. Will you be joining us in chat, or are you busy?
Yeah, I'll be there. Like, Poison is at work until God knows when, so I'm just gonna throw some leftovers in the oven, and then I'll be back as soon as I feed the cats too.
Sweet. All
Feeding
right then.
living things in this house is gonna happen, and then I'll be in chat.
All right, cool. So yeah,
All right,
hope you guys enjoyed. I'm gonna switch to the title screen, change the title of my stream, and then we'll be up with some Fallout. So I will see you guys in just a little second.
sweet.
See ya.
See you, everyone.
Bye.